For decades, the American passport has been one of the most powerful travel documents in the world. With it, U.S. citizens have been able to jet off to hundreds of countries without worrying about applying for a visa ahead of time. It symbolized freedom of movement, freedom to explore, and freedom to experience the world. But that era is slowly changing. In 2025, there are now 22 countries that still require American citizens to obtain a visa before entering. And no, we're not just talking about war zones or isolated regimes. Some of these are countries with growing economies, rich culture, and strategic geopolitical importance. In this video, we're breaking down every one of these 22 countries, why they require visas, what kind of visa you'll need, and what it means for U.S. travelers. So whether you're a digital nomad, a tourist, a journalist, or just curious about global mobility in a shifting world, stay tuned. Let's start with a country that's often in the headlines for all the wrong reasons: Afghanistan. After the U.S. withdrawal in 2021 and the Taliban's return to power, Afghanistan has become one of the most difficult countries for Americans to enter. The U.S. does not have an embassy operating there, and the Taliban-controlled government is not internationally recognized. To even consider visiting Afghanistan today, an American would need permission from Taliban authorities, and there's no formal visa process. This is a closed country for most U.S. citizens unless traveling under rare, special circumstances like humanitarian missions. Next up is Algeria, a North African nation with rich culture, Mediterranean beaches, and the largest landmass on the continent. Despite its potential as a tourist destination, Algeria maintains a strict visa regime. U.S. travelers must apply for a visa in advance through an Algerian consulate. You'll need an invitation letter or confirmed hotel bookings, proof of travel insurance, and financial means. Processing can take several weeks, and the bureaucracy is notoriously slow. Algeria is also sensitive about journalists and anyone suspected of political activity. Belarus, often called Europe's last dictatorship, remains closely aligned with Russia. Since the 2020 elections and the crackdown on protests, the Belarusian government has tightened its grip and tightened visa requirements for Americans. Even though some nationalities can enter Belarus visa-free for short stays, U.S. citizens are not on that list. You'll need to apply for a visa through their consulate, and if you're planning to visit during political unrest, it may be denied altogether. Heading to the heart of Africa, we find the Central African Republic. This is one of the world's poorest and most unstable countries, plagued by civil war, violence, and a barely functioning government. Americans can only enter with a visa obtained in advance. And even if you do secure one, travel outside of the capital city of Bangui is extremely dangerous without a military escort or UN presence. Most government websites and embassies provide almost no tourist support, so the risks outweigh the rewards. Next is Chad, another Central African nation facing issues with terrorism, poverty, and civil unrest. U.S. citizens must get a visa before arrival, and the process is difficult. You'll need a yellow fever certificate, proof of accommodation, and local sponsorship. Many embassies don't process tourist visas quickly or at all, so Americans should expect delays and uncertainty. We then move to one of the world's most powerful nations, China. Despite deep economic ties between the U.S. and China, Americans still need a visa to visit. Whether you're going for business, tourism, or family reunification, you must apply in advance through a Chinese consulate. You'll need a detailed itinerary, return tickets, hotel bookings, and often even an interview. Political tensions between the two countries mean applications are scrutinized heavily, and rejection rates have increased in recent years. In Central Africa, Congo, Brazzaville, and Congo, Kinshasa, Both require visas for Americans. These two countries, the Republic of the Congo and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, have complex entry procedures, high corruption levels, and unstable political environments. Americans must submit visa applications in advance, often including invitation letters, vaccination records, and financial proof. Once inside, your movement may be restricted, and exit visas may be required in certain regions. Cuba is next, and its visa requirements are less about the Cuban government and more about U.S. policy. Technically, Americans can travel to Cuba with a visa-like document called a tourist card, but you also need to qualify under one of 12 approved categories by the U.S. government. Tourism is not one of them. That means most Americans need to go through an educational, journalistic, or humanitarian route, or risk violating U.S. law. We now go to East Africa, Eritrea, a nation so isolated it's often compared to North Korea. The visa process is slow and unpredictable. Even once inside, foreigners cannot travel beyond the capital without government approval. Surveillance is heavy, and communications are restricted. Eritrea is sometimes called the Hermit Kingdom of Africa, and it's easy to see why. Americans must obtain a visa in advance, and even then may be denied entry at the airport. Ghana, surprisingly, also requires visas for U.S. citizens. Unlike many African nations that allow e-visas or visa on arrival, Ghana insists that Americans apply through their embassy before traveling. The process involves biometric data, proof of yellow fever vaccination, and sometimes a personal interview. While the country is relatively stable and safe, bureaucracy remains a hurdle for U.S. travelers. Next up is Iran. Due to decades of strained relations, travel between the U.S. and Iran is difficult. Americans must go through a complicated visa application process that includes background checks, mandatory tour guides, and a state-approved itinerary. You can't just show up in Tehran and explore. Every movement must be tracked. Most Americans visit only under special tour programs. Liberia, a country founded by freed American slaves, still requires U.S. citizens to get a visa beforehand. Despite the historical connection, the government mandates a visa process that includes health certificates and financial statements. Infrastructure in Liberia is poor, and entry without proper documentation can lead to deportation. Mali, located in West Africa, is currently facing terrorism and insurgency threats. Americans are warned not to travel there, but if you must, a visa is required. Application must be made at a Malian embassy, and once inside the country, check-in procedures with police are common. Security risks remain high, especially in rural areas. Next, Nauru, the world's third smallest country and one of the most difficult places to visit. There is no U.S. embassy, and you must apply for a visa by emailing the government directly with documents, travel plans, and sponsorship. Approval is slow, and flights are limited. This Pacific island is mostly visited by journalists or curious adventurers. Niger, another West African country, demands a visa from U.S. citizens. Due to terrorism, poverty, and limited infrastructure, the visa process includes background checks and often a security interview. Some areas of Niger are off-limits entirely, and travel advisories remain high. North Korea is perhaps the most infamous name on this list. The U.S. State Department currently bans Americans from traveling to North Korea entirely, with very limited exceptions. Even if you could apply, the North Korean regime would require an invitation from their government and full surveillance during your stay. Violating any law, real or perceived, can lead to imprisonment or worse. Russia, one of America's major geopolitical rivals, requires U.S. citizens to get a visa in advance. The process is complicated and includes fingerprints, invitation letters, and long wait times. Since the invasion of Ukraine and worsening diplomatic ties, obtaining a Russian visa has become even harder. You may also face additional scrutiny during your visit, especially if you're a journalist, NGO worker, or former government employee. Somalia is next, a country plagued by decades of civil war and terrorism. While it technically offers visas on arrival at Mogadishu Airport, the U.S. advises against all travel. If you must go, it's best to arrange your visa in advance with sponsorship and ensure you have security arrangements upon landing. Sudan, following political unrest and recent military takeovers, is not easily accessible. Americans must apply for a visa beforehand, and travel is discouraged due to risks of arrest, detention, and violence. The government may restrict your movements even with a valid visa. Turkmenistan is one of the most closed countries in the world. The visa process is time-consuming, and you'll need an official letter of invitation approved by the government. Even after approval, you must follow a strict itinerary, and independent travel is virtually impossible. Most visits are government-monitored. Venezuela, despite being in the Western Hemisphere, requires Americans to apply for a visa in advance. Diplomatic ties with the U.S. have been rocky, and Americans face longer processing times and additional security screenings. The country is rich in culture and beauty, but the economic crisis makes travel difficult. And finally, we have Yemen. With years of civil war, a fractured government, and major humanitarian crises, Yemen remains off-limits for most travelers. Even if you somehow obtain a visa through a third-country embassy, getting in and out safely is a major challenge. Kidnappings and attacks are not uncommon, and U.S. government support is almost non-existent. So there you have it. 22 countries where your American passport just isn't enough anymore. In 2025, as global politics shift and diplomatic relationships evolve, U.S. travelers must be more informed, prepared, and cautious than ever before. Visa-free travel is a privilege, not a right, and it's slowly being chipped away, country by country. Before planning any international trip, check visa policies carefully, visit the U.S. State Department website, and consult each country's embassy. What worked last year might not work this year, and one mistake could get you denied entry, fined, or even detained. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates on international travel, visa changes, and global mobility news. And tell us in the comments, which country on this list surprised you the most?